Sorry for the minor late. This evening I have the pleasure of hosting my friend Mudar Adnan Zahran, the CEO of the Jordanian opposition coalition. Mudar, correct me if I said something wrong. Mudar is a prominent Jordanian politician and an advocate of democracy in Jordan, or the New Jordan project, so to speak. And we would like to discuss this evening three major topics and maybe also some regional news, because we always have a lot of regional news. The first one is the way that Israel and Israelis and Judaism is perceived from our point of view through the glasses of the people that watch Al Jazeera and also watch other Arab media, of course, and are not totally familiar with the situation inside Israel. So Mudar, first of all, if you can introduce yourself in a few words, and can you reflect to the Israeli audience how the Arabic media is portraying them?
Thanks for having me. My name is Mudar Adnan, Jordanian Palestinian heritage representative, sole representative of 12 million Jordanian at large. Of them, 11.3 million Jordanians of Palestinian heritage with no voice, no sound, no one to speak for them. That's why we have to push forward and assume the role. Gladly so. That said, the image of basically the Jews and the Israelis in the Arab world is quite a complicated subject. It's complicated not because of the way it's being played. It's complicated because of those who are trying to examine it, and those who are trying to study it lack the knowledge of the playbook of how things are being done. I'll make it very simple in this analogy. Imagine if you need an engineer to build a house, and you go get a doctor who would claim that he knows how to build houses. This is what you guys are ending up with, and this is why the image of Jews, Israel, the level of anti-Semitism has never been higher in the Middle East and the world than it has ever been. So the playbook, the radicals, the terrorists, and even the regular, adversary as a Palestinian or Muslim or whatever you wish to call us, they have a much better, more advanced playbook than what you guys do. And these are the following problems. First of all, where do we stand? The Gaza war has been the most effective anti-Semitism tool I've witnessed in my lifetime. These are, wars are always nasty. There's no such thing as a nice war. But what the media chooses to focus on this is why you need to understand where this comes from. The media is not only anti-Semitic, not everyone in the media is an anti-Semite, but the way the larger scheme of things by the powers that be is to keep the Arab-Israeli conflict ongoing. The official policy of three-letter agencies in the West, particularly in Europe and elsewhere, is to do everything to prolong the Arab-Israeli conflict. They don't want to see it ending, and this is why they keep advocating this two-state solution, things that could never happen or may not happen in the way they're trying to manifest it. It's all deliberate, and it's all about creating a process which will never end. Hence, the media is one of the main instigators of the everlasting conflict. And since the Gaza war has began, we had people, when a bomb is dropped, be it the bomb dropped in Ukraine or in South America or in Israel or in Gaza or in the West Bank, there's no such thing as a nice bomb in sight. You will find bodies, body parts, dead children. It's called war. It's not nice, but it's war. What they did is today, in the age of having a mobile phone and having a camera all over the place and having the internet connection, so there was live transmission of dead children, dead bodies. Now, this is where it was really problematic, when it got really dark. Instead of justifying what's really happening, I, as a Jordanian Palestinian heritage, as someone who's got relatives in Gaza, we know for a fact that Hamas was openly, on record, hiding behind children, hiding behind school children, hiding behind schools, garrison at hospitals. This is not a cliche. This is not just, a justification for Israel's action. This is the fact. Hamas has been doing that, and there's plenty of evidence. The ones you guys have been using to defend you, to advocate your story, to say your side of the story, they're not effective and they are angry. The other side is playing victim. They are like Al Jazeera, Al Arabi at one point, Sky News, you name them. All of those people, BBC, they're excellent at playing victims. In your case, you would get the most, the very wrong people to get in that kind. Example is they would hire, sometimes pay for some so-called Arab Zionists. The Arab Zionists are not, in most cases, they're serving their own agendas, and they're serving their country's agendas. I wouldn't say country's name, but you get someone who keeps hurling insult at Palestinians. The fact of the matter is, this is not helping your cause. To promote and highlight this guy is not smart. It doesn't make you look good, and it makes you as if you are, quote unquote, after assaulting the Palestinians with weapons and F-16s, according to the narrative of the anti-Semites. Now you're assaulting them verbally by bringing their fellow Arabs to call them names. I was mesmerized. But how many people like that were used by the so-called Israel advocacy groups in the United States? They would bring someone, a nobody, someone with no expertise, they're nobody. Pay them $25,000 so they can go and speak at so-and-so event and say Israel's side. Well, bring someone from the kibbutz who's lost a family member to speak Israel's side. Bring the Israeli victims. Have a day of open the cameras to how Israeli children live under the bunkers when Iran shoots. This is what you're not doing, and you're not good at doing. The way they're doing it is also the elite mindset, because many of those advocating for Israel are, wealthy business people in the United States, American Jews and Zionist Jews, and they think of it as the same mindset of the Manhattan penthouse, where they bring an Arab guy who says Israel is good, Palestinians are bad, and they put them in television, and they look even more stupid. And as someone with an intelligence operational background, you will not believe how many PSYOPs operations took place right on the back of Israelis by Arab countries. Example of that, there was a certain Arab Gulf state who was advocating support for the propping up the Islamists, propping up the Jordanian government, which is a pro-Islamist government, and helping empower the Islamists all over the region. That country is not Qatar. Qatar did that openly. There was another country who did that secretly. But on the other hand, in public, they used their spokesmen and women to visit Israel and say, oh, we hate the Palestinians. The Palestinians are bad. Palestine does not exist. In fact, we love Israel. We didn't care for Palestinians. And what they did was cover up their country's tochas while they're doing all the evil work, while they are lip serving you and bullshitting you into believing them. And to be honest, it mesmerizes me with Jews being, theoretically some of the smartest ethnicities in the world with the highest IQ levels, how they all swallowed the bait and they thought it was a good thing and ended up promoting those guys who are anti-Palestinian, when in reality they're only serving their cause. I'll give you one last example, and that example, this video I'm going to share with the person in question. There was this very famous, very intelligent Israeli journalist. She speaks both Arabic and English and Hebrew. And she simply shared a video of someone who said very nasty things about the Palestinians, and she thought it was okay. What she didn't understand, that this guy who was saying the Palestinians are not Arabs, the Palestinians are gypsies who don't belong to Israel or to the Arab world. But wait, he actually said that they don't belong to the Arab world. You need to read the mindset, the unconscious part of the brain. When he says that those Palestinians are not Arabs, then he is debunking Israel's claim that these are Arabs, take them. So it shows how short-sighted, it shows how inexperienced, how out of touch many of those doing Hasbara are, and the outcome, fast forward today, the evil camp has won. The evil camp, the demonization of Jews and of Israel. Could you ever compare a country like Israel to a country as evil as the Hashemite regime in Jordan? Would the Hashemite regime in Jordan ever get 10% of what the bad press Israel gets? No. Yes, being a Jew is the problem. Anti-Semitism is real. But on the other hand, you're giving them the sticks to hit you with because you don't know how to play the game.
So let me ask you, because you were focusing mainly on geopolitics and let's say the battle of the minds in the West. And when we speak about the relationship between Israel and our people or the neighboring countries, those are two different issues, because in the Israeli discourse, many people are claiming that we can't win it, or we have nothing to gain in it. Sorry, that all Arabs are strictly against us, and trying to communicate with our board in Arabic rather than, the IDF spokesperson that is issuing eviction notices, so to speak. It doesn't have any sense in it. Do you think Israel can communicate with our world and gain something, change something?
Solving problems starts at home. The Abrahamic Accords were very genuine and very, very wonderful ideas, but they had to be sustained by solving the problems back at home in Israel. Many people, when the Abrahamic Accord started some 8 years ago or more, they began saying things like, oh, the Arab-Israeli conflict is finished. I'm talking very smart people. And when they used to say that, I would literally open my mouth and think, what the hell are they thinking? You cannot make peace with the Arab world and solve the problems with the Arab world or promote the image in the Arab world before you solve the problem you have at home. Some people began celebrating 8 years ago that they can now travel to Dubai and eat at the buffet and drink cheap alcohol and God knows what else. And so you're happy that you can travel to Dubai, while, when you're traveling down Route 60 near Bethlehem, Palestinian kids are still throwing rocks at your vehicle. For God's sake, they threw rocks at my car because I had an Israeli rental. So that's not peace. You need to solve problems at home. Let's start with this thing. The argument that, quote unquote, the Palestinians do not exist, there was never a Palestine, that argument is not only stupid, it also doesn't help Israel and doesn't help Jews. Yes, there was a British mandate for Palestine, and there were Arabs and Jews. And the country, or the Ottoman government, county of Palestine was a majority Jewish county until the late 1800s, until a lot of other things happened. So let's not deny that the word Palestine exists. And also let's not deny the Palestinians exist, because there was never a United Arab Emirate country just 54 years ago. There was never a Qatar, never a Kuwait, never a Belgium, never a Lebanon, never a Libya. So if you're going to start using quotation to use the word Palestinians, how about you start doing it with the United Arab Emirates, with whom you guys are proud about having a peace agreement with those guys, even though they're very far away. How about you start at home? Acknowledge the Palestinians exist, but be very careful about it and say, well, they got 78% of the land. The British mandate for Palestine included all of what's today Jordan. So the Palestinians, first of all, you need to say, we don't deny their existence. They're people, we care for them. But, I think separation, just like Pakistan and India, would make peace. And they have a country called Jordan. If you're not even convinced of that, let's keep it at what would change your image with the Arabs. I knew people from a very prominent Jewish American organization in the United States. I definitely would not be saying which one. They fly on a trip to Saudi Arabia some 4 years ago. They meet Saudi officials and they came back celebrating as if it's the Yom Kippur or something. And they were very happy that they met the Saudis, and they tell me we've spoken to Saudi officials. Peace is coming. We're going to sign a peace agreement with Saudi Arabia, and the Saudis don't even care for Palestine. The Saudi officials told us they didn't care for Palestine. This is what they were claiming. I was telling them then, back in 2021, that without a Palestinian state, the Saudis will not have peace with you. And they were very dismissive of what I said, even ridiculed what I said. And I'm talking people who are friends with US presidents, former and present. And all of a sudden, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia made a statement saying that he wants peace, but he wants a Palestinian state first. And one of the Crown Prince's statements is the fact that, quote unquote, that he's not very adamant on having a two-state solution per se, but he said that his population would demand it. So you need to cut yourself a slack by securing Palestinians' rights somewhere. That somewhere, you cannot transcend it. You cannot sign comprehensive peace without the Palestinian getting their own place, getting their own passport, getting their own home, their own soccer team, their own country. This place, the way it's going, it could as well be Jordan. If it ends up being somewhere in Israel, somewhere in the West Bank, Gaza, anywhere, that will be a recipe for everlasting wars. And even if that country becomes peaceful, she will be a burden on the Jewish state. And eventually, few more decades, it will cost the Jewish state its own identity. That said, and to answer your question in a nutshell, yes, if you manage to solve the Palestinian problem, you can advance with the Arab world. Until then, it's all baloney, it's all lip service, it's all noshkite, you name it. It's not going to happen.
Okay. So is Jordan the Palestinian state?
It's a country where 95% of the population is Palestinian. This is proven. I have documented this, and everyone is free to watch a video of mine named How Many Palestinians in Jordan by Mudar Zahran. I present the evidence from the US Embassy in Oman, from the BBC of all places, which documents the actual percentage of Palestinians in Jordan. Jordan is 78% of Palestine. Jordan is where 11.3 million Palestinians reside, where 1.1 million Palestinians and their children hold Israeli green cards and Israeli yellow cards. For those who do not know, an Israeli yellow card allows you to live in the West Bank for as long as you want. An Israeli green card states that you actually a resident of the West Bank with a Jordanian passport. So those people living in Jordan who could actually live fully in Israel if they wanted to, and they're choosing to stay in Jordan. Let me just quote again, and I always do that, the U.S. intelligence cable leaked by the U.S. Embassy in Amman through the website WikiLeaks. The cable states that the embassy, all the Palestinians they've spoken to, they were not interested in the right of return to Palestine or Israel. They were only interested in achieving civil rights in Jordan. Honestly, this whole Palestine-Arab conflict is pretty much like a credit card which the Palestinian Authority and the Hashemite regime in Jordan have made the most withdrawals on. And it's time we end it. Of course, everybody's going to have the equal rights in Israel. But the key thing is we will have Palestinians in Israel as residents, not as citizens. In addition, we will in Jordan, we will be able to enact the Jordanian Citizenship Act. If the king refuses to acknowledge it or actually refuses to apply it, which states that all Palestinians are Jordanians. So we have now, as we speak, close to 100,000, 110,000 Palestinians in the West Bank who belong to the problematic refugee camps. Those camps are the Balata and Shechem, Nablus, the Jenin refugee camp, the Tulkarem refugee camp. These are the camps which, and I want you to listen to me carefully when I say this, these are the camps which the Jordanian intelligence has been able to control and finance and control militants in those camps. And they have become a leverage tool for the Jordanian government. Whenever they get angry with the Arabs, they cause a problem there. Whenever they get angry with the Israelis, they do some terrorist operation there. The Israeli security agencies know exactly what I'm saying is true. And I don't care for the so-called experts who have no clue. But that said, those people will have to move somewhere else. I've said that in television multiple times. And we will end up taking them in Jordan. For now, the king of Jordan refuses. Just think about it. If we had a different ruler in Jordan, if you had, for example, me or any secular or moderate ruler in Jordan who would happen to be of Palestinian heritage, when President Trump announced that he would like to replace the Gazans somewhere else, you would have had a good million Gazans in Jordan today. Gazans in the Gaza, this is not about emptying Gaza of its residents. This is about the fact that Gaza is not habitable. So they have to suffer because Egypt and Jordan would not take them, and Egypt and Jordan would not take them because they want to keep the Arab-Israeli conflict alive. And, you know, I am not exactly diplomatic when it comes to such vital issues. These issues are going to affect my kids and your kids. So I don't have the luxury, I can't afford the luxury of being diplomatic. There's also a problem, you know, it's a chronic Jewish problem. And I don't care how many people are going to offend. In the Jewish mindset, you know, there's a tendency for apologizing and appeasing the enemy all the time. Jordan's media demonizes, Jordan state media demonizes Jews. Jordan state media plays songs calling us to go kill Jews. The king himself compared quote unquote Jewish terrorism to Islamic terrorism. So he's comparing what he calls Zionist terrorism to ISIS. This was on video, live TV, while the king was wearing his camouflage uniform. And pretty much, you know, small in size like the one you would buy at Walmart, but never mind. That said, he also claiming that, quote unquote, Israel kills our children every 5 minutes in Jerusalem or Gaza. So this guy who's saying all that nasty stuff about you, there's no pushback. You are even reluctant to host the king's opposition on your TV. You would have to think twice before you do that. You are reluctant to even, you know, displease Sisi. Sisi of Egypt, whose regime is openly working with Hamas. Who do you think was able to smuggle all that ammunition from Sinai to Hamas during 2 years of war? We're both servicemen, Tom. 2 years servicemen. I'm a serviceman. What's the first thing that runs out in a war? Ammo. Ammo. Where did Hamas get all that ammo? Both the Israeli and Egyptian intelligence, not Israeli. Jordanian and Egyptian intelligence are both involved, and we can get into that. So as long as a Jew is playing dhimmi, I don't know if you know the word dhimmi, as long as he's playing, second-class citizen with the Megan David star on the jacket, as long as they're having that mindset, you're not going anywhere. The Middle East is a jungle, dog eat dog, and you're playing with this MIT professor mindset among thugs. It doesn't work like that way. You need to open the political pressure against so-called allies of yours. The ones who are your allies, be it the United Arab Emirates, Jordan, Egypt, and others, have been blackmailing Jews and destroying their image more than anyone else. Look at the United Arab Emirates. United Arab Emirates, always punching above their weight, is a lightweight country. They have plenty of money, but what else can they do in the Middle East? How much can they change in the Middle East? They've tried. They are no match to the Jews or the Israelis of the region at all. On the other hand, the United Arab Emirates signed a peace with you to convince you that, they are peace. And at the same time, they've conditioned their peace to not annex in the West Bank. By God, most Palestinians in the West Bank would love for the Palestinian Authority to go away and for them to be annexed by Israel, even if they never become Israeli citizens. They would just love to see. They stopped annexing the West Bank in the name of signing a peace agreement with them. This is where the Arabs in this region play chess while the Israelis play checkers. You guys settle with short-term wins versus Arab countries, even though they're not exactly the smartest leaders. They play chess because they understand the region. First, they stop you from annexing the West Bank, which would have solved a lot of problems for both sides, Israelis and Palestinians. Then they start criticizing you and condemning you in the United Nations because of Gaza and because of Al-Aqsa Mosque. You and I know that Al-Aqsa Mosque has been used by the Jordanian government through Al-Waqf to upscale and prop up the king's image and demonize Jews even further and blackmail the Arab countries for money. At the same time, the United Arab Emirates goes and joins his condemnation of you, all while calling themselves your friends. Fast forward, when you try to annex the West Bank, they threat again through a decision through the Knesset. They threaten that they're going to end the peace agreement, and at the same time, they say that the peace agreement was originally signed on the condition of not annexing the West Bank. And the list goes on and on and on. They prop up the Muslim Brotherhood regime in Jordan while they claim they're against the Muslim Brotherhood. So they are very smart in one thing. They do something, and it seems to me that they talk something completely different. Yes, they're against the Muslim Brotherhood in their country, but they've never saved any effort in siding with Jordan's in all of its actions, which is totally anti-Israel and anti-Semitic. List goes on for Sisi, list goes on for Erdogan. They are playing you, and this is a very most important advice for the Middle East. Look at what people do, not what they say. And so far, all Arab regimes, except for one, all Arab regimes have no interest in seeing the Arab-Israeli conflict go. And the easiest trick they play at the moment is demonizing the Jew. When the Jordanian economy collapsed in 1988, when we walk up in Jordan to the Jordanian dinar, half its value, King Hussein blamed Israel. When Egyptians are starving in Egypt, Sisi seeks confrontation in Sinai with Israel. So this is basically the Jewish pinata. Whatever you're in trouble, just hit the Jewish pinata, and you, I repeat, you have put yourself in that position in the sense that you're not good at playing with the region and attacking them through media and demonizing them. And this is where it's really a problem. You are getting used. You've heard recent reports of how United Arab Emirates allegedly sought the help of Jewish American organizations to demonize Saudi Arabia and label Saudi Arabia as anti-Semitic. So basically, the Arab regimes are, even the ones claiming proximity to Israel, are using you versus you using them. They're riding you. It's not you riding them. Don't get me wrong. When they bring someone like this guy, some clown here and there, and they gather with a group of Israeli and Jewish and American business people in New York, and he charges $25,000 to speak against Palestinians. Tell them Palestinians are bad, Israel's good, sababa. What have you achieved? Nothing. It's entertaining, but it doesn't score you any points. When it comes to Hasbara, promoting Israel's image, I hate to say this, but the whole thing for most doing this, trying to do Hasbara, the whole thing for them is upside down. For the lack of of a better term, I wouldn't use any other terms, but they've got their heads in the wrong places when it comes here.
So let's speak about facts for a second, because I'm sure that most of our audience doesn't know the facts when it comes to Palestinian Jordanians. The media all over the world, and of course in Israel, is very informative when it comes to the situation of Palestinians in the West Bank, or of course in Gaza. But can you take us through the situation of Palestinians in Jordan? What are the facts on the ground?
Jordan is the ultimate apartheid state. Jordan is the only country in the world where you have to explain where did you hail from, which native town, the native town you hailed from, on all government applications. Jordan is a two-tier legal system, a caste system where the Palestinian majority are slaves for the system. 95% of Jordan are controlled by all other minorities in Jordan, be those minorities the Hashemite family of 30 people, the so-called our brothers and sisters who label as East Jordanians. Usually they're all Palestinians. We have the same family names, same DNA, same connections. And those are minority. And then there are the Circassians, the Syrians with Jordanian passports, the Christian minority, Catholics. Of course, if you're a Palestinian Christian, you're worthless. You're like the lowest form of human ratings in Jordan. So this is a huge apartheid system. We're deprived of government jobs. We're deprived of scholarships. We pay higher tax brackets. The taxation system is very, it depends. It's in the eye of the beholder, the eye of the IRS, Jordanian IRS official. He can guess how much taxes you owe. And it's safe to say that the ruling minorities pay any taxes while we burden all of the taxes in the country. We are not allowed free education. While everyone else goes to the university free, we are the ones who have to pay for university education. We are deprived. Jordanians, even though we're Jordanian nationals, we are deprived of all government jobs. We're deprived of all security and army and police jobs. Some fools, dinosaurs, so-called experts, say that it's good because it keeps the Palestinians away from fighting Israel. Well, this is absolute nonsense, because the Palestinians didn't fight Israel in 1948. The Palestinians never fought Israel in 1967. Read Moshe Dayan's book, describing in details how Israeli tanks rolled through the West Bank and the Palestinian villages were still working in the field, didn't even throw a rock at the Israelis. The Palestinians by nature are not interested in fighting, and we can prove that that's a whole different discussion. And also the ones who were totally in control of the Jordanian army in the old days and the Jordanian Air Force were Palestinians and nothing happened. You need to understand what a Palestinian is. The concept that we need to keep him caged and controlled like a pit bull is absolutely racist and stupid. And this is the same narrative that the king of Jordan sells to the Israelis. He's telling them that, you know, if I go, the Palestinians would eat you alive. Not true. Even Arafat, even a Meshuggah like Arafat, when he was about to take control of Jordan, the Fidayeen didn't fight across the borders for 18 months. Please understand that our presence in Jordan is the most oppressed presence in the Middle East. A Palestinian terrorist in Israeli jails has more rights in Israel than a Palestinian in Jordan. This is our country. 1970, when there was a Palestinian dominance of the Fidayeen in the country, Henry Kissinger wrote a cable to the White House telling the president that this is a unique chance for, quote unquote, a Palestinian settlement. Of course, Kissinger, not Kissinger, what's his name? Nixon, not exactly a fan of Jews. He refused the idea. And even then, King Hussein had to import the Pakistani army to come and fight the Palestinians. Because, you know, even the Jordanian army and the king of Jordan, they have no chance in our presence. Come on, we're 11.3 million people versus less than 500,000 other people. So nobody can win against those easily. But that said, the bigger question here, which you should ask yourself, why are you not using the fact that Palestinians are oppressed in the country, Jordan, to call out and shame the global so-called human rights entities who are always blaming Israel for Gaza and elsewhere? Why can't you tell them, go look and see what happens in Jordan?
Yeah, I think that first of all, the answer is because people don't really know. But if we can return to the facts, because you said something very interesting before. You said you made the comparison between the situation of Palestinians in Jordan to the situation of prisoners in the Israeli prisons. So if you can, please try to draw a chart of comparison between the rights of Palestinians under Jordanian rule and the rights of Palestinians in the West Bank or in Gaza. Because I think factually people have no idea what's going on. So can you, and I would like
what's the most important thing for an Arab? Of course, we Palestinians are not Arabs, you know. That's a whole different discussion. But we're far away from being Arabs. But okay, that's fine. I'm proud to be Muslim, but we're not Arabs. That said, in this region, what's the most important thing for anyone? It's not money, it's honor. And what's the most significant part of someone's honor in this region? Women's honor, women's reputation. So if you call an Arab, if you go down the street and you call an Arab something about his mother or his sister, he most likely is going to kill you.
Yeah.
And he would face the consequences and saying, you know, what can I do? I had no choice. And I've spoken to some of those people in Jordan. You know, someone who's done 10 years in jail for something like that. And he said, oh, I had no choice. I had to clean my
honor.
Yeah. The Israeli army, you know, the Israeli people, the soldiers, when they move into the West Bank and garrison at checkpoints, and you've been in that position, they are advised by their commanders not to provoke the people and especially not to mess with women.
Definitely.
Right after this interview, you and your colleagues and your friends go into TikTok or Facebook or Twitter You'll find Jordanian government agents, and we know that Jordanian government agents because nobody dares to speak like that in Jordan unless they're supported by the government, and usually the Jordanian government operatives, intelligence operatives, we call them mukhabarat. You would find them calling Palestinian women names 24/7. And it's done deliberately to insult and destroy the morale of Palestinians. They've been on that, in that, nonstop for 4 years now. 4 years of calling Palestinian women names. In Israel, that would never happen. It's never happened. In Jordan, a Palestinian cannot get an education.
But by law?
No, no. They dedicate the state universities, which are paid for by our tax money, only to minorities' children, like, the East Bankers and others. They'll go to those universities mostly for free, while we have to pay for very expensive private schools, which are of lower quality because they don't have the finances like state schools. And this is why, if you achieve like score a C or a B minus as a non-Palestinian in Jordan, you still could get accepted to a state medical school. While if you are Palestinian, you can get accepted to a state medical school if you have an A plus, and then you have to pay for it, while the other guys would take it for free. So that's why the quality of education for us has been, sustained, but through incredible wealth, like an average Palestinian enjoy. While on the other hand, the Palestinian in Israeli jails could get a degree from the Hebrew University. Many of them did a PhD in the Hebrew University while in jail, right, at taxpayers' money.
But
we are not allowed to open up businesses. When you open a business in Gaza or the West Bank, the Israeli government would not shut it down for you. In Jordan, they have been cracking down on all major Palestinian businesses. So in the 27 years of Abdullah's tenure, he has shut down most major Israeli businesses. And the Palestinians, Palestinian businesses, the Palestinian people are proudly the Jews of the Middle East. We are by nature business people, bankers, producers, manufacturers. He's shut all of that down, and by forced us to give away those businesses to people, who belong to other ethnicities, like the East Bankers and the Bedouins and the Syrians. We are also, when we renew our passport, people complain that in Israel, when you want to get a document, it takes you a lot of visits to certain areas to get, for example, a VIP card for entry in Israel. Well, in Jordan, we're not seeking entry into Israel. We're seeking just our own rightful right to hold a passport, Jordanian passport as citizens. They forced you to struggle by going into something called, wait for it, the Inquisitions and Follow-up Department. I repeat, the Inquisitions and Follow-up Department.
That's the official name.
Yes, you can Google it.
Wow.
دائرة المتابعة والتفتيش. What takes, an Egyptian resident of Jordan to renew their passport, to renew their driver's license, a day, half an hour, takes a Palestinian 6 months to a year, during which he probably would be with no driver's license. Imagine, these are the Nazi apartheid tactics implemented in Jordan against 95% of the population. And here, allow me to quote my friend, a very great guy, fought in Vietnam, and then made Aliyah to serve as an Israeli military intelligence officer. This guy told me, Jordan is, quote unquote, we know, Jordan is Palestinian slaves and everyone else is a master. So in Jordan, anyone who's not Palestinian, they get everything, and the 95% Palestinians get nothing. They're not doing that to protect the regime. They're not doing that because they love Israel. They're not doing that to keep the Palestinians under control. They're doing that for a much bigger reason, because every time we try to ask for any form of rights in Jordan, they would immediately tell us, go liberate Palestine first. This is not your country. You should go liberate Palestine, not over here. Go do your activism somewhere else. And this is how they've been terrifying 95% of the population into submission. And submission is not what they're getting. I am an example. And let me just be clear. When I, as the first person to bring the bill, raise the flag and speak on behalf of 11.3 million Palestinians in Jordan, in our country, Jordan, a campaign was launched against me between 2017 up until today. A campaign attacking me, attacking my children, attacking my wife, destroying my reputation, labeling me in Wikipedia, publishing bogus articles against me. You personally, one time, like possibly 40 days ago, posted something about me, and you saw the stampede. Certain accounts, one of them an Arab-Israeli journalist clown, all coming to comment against me with all kind of stories. So this is why they are afraid. Guys, you need to understand. The minute Jordan is recognized for its demographic majority, the minute Jordan recognizes the demographic 95% of its people, is the minute 95% of the Arab-Israeli conflict is solved. Right of return solved in Jordan. Come on, you and I know that no Palestinians are going to be returning to Haifa or to Sfad or to Gaza or to Castaria or to Nazaret. Where are they going to go? To Gush Etzion or Ariel? They're not going back. Even if they have the chance, they're not going back. That said, once they have a new system, a new regime, a new whatever, a new situation in Jordan where people recognize that Jordan is their country, we will have the right of return and statehood problems fixed. Then we're going to have the other problem fixed, which is al-Waqf, al-Masjid al-Aqsa, al-Waqf. The only problem, the monkey in the middle in al-Waqf, is the Hashemite regime. If that's gone...
Before we go over there, I want to pause on the issue of political rights of the Palestinians in Jordan, because I thought to myself while you were speaking, I understand the situation when it comes to jobs and businesses and career opportunities, etc. I think that most of the world is not aware of the situation. I understand it, but I think that if we were talking about it in some sort of American campus, then my guess is that we would hear many students saying, oh, but this is not the same. You speak about social rights, and the Palestinians in the West Bank or in Gaza are occupied, while the Palestinians in Jordan are free. So are they free?
The Palestinians in Jordan are not free. The Palestinians in Jordan are occupied by a foreign Saudi family that resides in Jordan, sucks their blood and their hard-earned money, and labels them as subhumans. There's no worse occupation than the Hashemite occupation of Jordan, because it's the only occupation in the world that claims that it doesn't exist. The Hashemite occupation in Jordan has turned the elite into slaves, has deprived humans of their basic humanity rights, not even civil rights, basic humanity rights. You realize in Jordan we have more than 400,000 stateless children because their mothers are Jordanians of Palestinian heritage. They were denied the Jordanian passport, and those kids are stateless, floating in the air with no citizenship. Has Israel ever done that to anybody? Has Israel ever done that to Israeli Arab children, or even children of Israeli Arabs who were engaged in terror acts? Whoever fails to acknowledge the Hashemite regime of Jordan as an occupying force, as an apartheid country who enslaves the majority Palestinian and also the minority Bedouins. Whoever fails to acknowledge that is a hypocrite, a liar, and an anti-Semite, because they always labeling Jews and Israel as evil, while they welcome with open arms those Arab dictators who have some of the worst track records on human rights.
So let me ask you this. If, let's say that we do things in your way, okay? Let's press a button and roll the video that starts with you having things your way. What's going to happen next? Will we have elections in Jordan? How will that play out? What will become out of it? How will it affect the West Bank and maybe Iraq as well? Because also the other side will be affected. What are the repercussions?
We definitely would love to see Jordan becoming democratic, but allowing democracy, a full-fledged democracy in Jordan after the king is gone, or the next morning, after that things have changed, allowing democracy is pretty much putting a 16-year-old who doesn't have his driver's license in the cockpit of an F-16. That I have in my own experience there. I tell you that that's not going to end well at all.
Probably.
So we don't believe in introducing democracy quickly. We believe that democracy should and could take up to 30 years. But during then, we're going to have a benevolent, authoritative regime where we're going to be enforcing proper rules, including transparency with people's money, acknowledging the Jordanian Citizenship Act, which states that every Palestinian is actually a Jordanian, extending passports to all Palestinians, including Palestinians in Gaza, extending passports to all Palestinians, restoring passports to Palestinians in the West Bank, and acknowledging them as our citizens, opening up our offices in the West Bank for civil service, like if you want a death certificate, a marriage decree. Israelis don't want to be issuing that for you. You will have it from Jordan, from our government, just like you have an Israeli consulate in London or Washington. And at the same time, we will also introduce the first and most important thing, which is banning the Muslim Brotherhood in Jordan, because the Muslim Brotherhood Jordan is the seat of the global Muslim Brotherhood organization, and they are propped up, supported, and empowered by the king himself. They are evil that's spreading like an octopus or spider's web all over the place. We need to ban them and lock them up. And I repeat, lock them up. And at the same time, we must be able to acknowledge our demographic majority, acknowledge that we are the Palestinian state, not the Palestinian state per se, but we are the state of the demographic majority in Jordan. A new census to prove us right could be taking place. And also, we need to change our laws. One is our education, incitement against anyone's race, religion, be it a Jew, a Christian, or Muslim. Incitements, anti-Semitism will become criminalized by law. So will be any kind of incitement against religion, ethnicity, or even a disability. That said, 30 years of that, and we will have a whole new generation, and we could start anew, and we could start organizing the situation in Judea and Samaria, where everyone will get their fair share and the ability of movement. Right now, Palestinians are not interested in identity. They are more interested in dignity. Let me quote one of my friends, Bassem Eid. Bassem Eid, an incredible speaker who travels the world speaking the truth. Bassem Eid once said to the European Parliament, when I was sitting next to him in 2018, he said, the Palestinians are seeking dignity, not identity. And this is what the new Jordan should secure. Again, even if we have a friendly Palestinian state in Judea and Samaria and the West Bank, that friendly Palestinian state will need an access point for political, economic, social, transportation, all of that could either be Israel or Jordan. If it's Israel, then it's going to become a burden on the Jewish state. If it's Jordan, it will become natural. So you're going to need Jordan to recognize its Palestinian majority, its Palestinian identity of the country, fourth and foremost.
What do you think the reactions of the Palestinian Authority would be to that sort of plan?
They are as relevant as Santa Claus. They're not relevant. They are a burden. They're hated. The people they hate the most and they fear the most are the Palestinian people in the West Bank. And they're irrelevant. And those people really have to go as much as the Hashemite regime has to go.
Okay, so before we close the discussion, as you know, as we spoke between ourselves, we're starting, let's say, playing with the idea of an Abrahamic movement that can become something that counters the Muslim Brotherhood, or maybe not countering, but creating an alternative, something that can bring together Jews, Muslims, moderate Muslims, of course, and Christian under the same roof. And maybe to say that diversity is a power rather than a problem. What do you think about it? Does it have a chance of creating an opposing political camp in the Muslim world to the Muslim Brotherhood?
Well, yes and no. Yes, in the concept, because as much as the fear and warmongers would like to tell you that the Muslims are crazy and the Muslims would like to fight and kill and do this and do that, the majority of Muslims have had enough. The majority of Muslims cannot afford 3 meals a day. The majority of Arabs are really impoverished and tired, and they really want to end this whole thing. The last thing they would be interested, even the Palestinians, the last thing they would be interested in is a war or jihad. So your idea is actually a silver bullet that could fix the whole thing. Really, no exaggeration here. But the only problem we have is the other side is carefully financed. People, all those political movements are carefully financed.
You speak about the radical.
The Brotherhood, the Radicals, the Free Palestine movement, they all are financed by the same entities, same group, same movers, same shakers. So there is a conspiracy in the sense to keep the status quo as is. That conspiracy is openly and shamelessly led by most European countries. And previously, some U.S. administrations like the Bush Jr., Bush W., Obama, and others, they were openly supportive of Islamists, where they welcomed them in the White House. They want to keep the narrative as is, where is that, we need jihad, it's Muslim versus Jew, Arab-Israeli conflict, that's their bread and butter. And those people finance the people. In your case, our movement, when I see one of a U.S. billionaire granted the movement $3 million, this is where I will start believing that this has traction. For now, the odds are against us, but again, as a Muslim, as an Orthodox or practicing Muslim, the odds were against Prophet Moses when he crossed the sea into the Holy Land. Actually, it wasn't the Holy Land then, but yeah, into the Sinai, when he crossed the ocean, across the sea, all the odds were against him. All the odds were against Muhammad when he ran away, fled from Mecca to Medina with no support and no money. All the odds were against all of those great men and women who made the difference. My opinion, let me be honest. The establishment in the United States no longer sees interest in keeping the Arab-Israeli conflict alive. Therefore, your movement, the movement you're talking about, the Abrahamic movement, is the kind of solution which the American establishment, including security establishment, including the military establishment, and the executive branch, they all support that idea. I think with more lobbying and more traction, you could define the proper financial and political support, and I think your movement could make the difference. Let me end on this note. The Arab-Israeli conflict is finished. in the sense that those who once allowed it to be, now they want it finished for good. I think before this president's term is over, before President Trump is done with his years in the White House, we will witness the final agreement ending the Arab-Israeli conflict. And I'm not at liberty to speak about other things in this regard.
And how do you think this conversation, and not only this conversation, but also, let's say, the news of the last few days are reflecting on the situation with Iran?
Iran is going to give Trump what he wants. These are the things Trump wants done. The military nuclear program is going to be finished, dismantled, and the Americans are going to pick up the pieces themselves and get rid of even the 400 kilograms, I repeat, 400 kilograms of highly enriched uranium. They will be left with a 1.5 enrichment scale civil use uranium under heavy and close military and American watch.
Just to elaborate, you're speaking about the level of enrichment that is not military grade?
Yeah, no, 1.5 is not military grade.
Yeah, so this is the kind of things that you use for medicine.
No, for nuclear reactors to generate energy.
For nuclear reactor and for medicine.
And that's what they're going to get. And it's going to be not just lip service and like the stupid Iran deal under Obama. It's going to be a real deal. Well, they have to, the American eyes and ears will be all over the place present with them. These are the conditions for the war not to take place. The second condition is ending the ballistic missile. Most of the so-called experts don't even know what ballistic missiles are. Ballistic missiles are the ones that were used during the 12-day confrontation with Iran, when it's actually a missile that's launched like a space rocket, goes into outer space, hovers into outer space, and lands right on target, where it's very difficult to detect it and intercept it. And the accuracy is very high of those missiles. That was the menace invoked on Israel by Iran during the 12 days confrontation. And those missiles, they have the ability now to be extended into hitting European capitals. And God knows, give the Iranians 5 years and they would hit the United States. And therefore, the Americans want this program dismantled, completely annihilated and dismantled. Third, they want the introduction of some sort of democracy into Iran, where, at least the butchery and the killing of the people would stop. Freedoms of people, even the opposition, will have the right to return to their country. And fourth, they want them to stop playing with the region and financing and aiding and abetting terrorists in the region, including Hezbollah, the Iraqi government, which is pro-Iran. These are the demands. Read my lips. Trump is going to get all four. If he doesn't get him through negotiations, he's going to get him through his F-35s and B-2s. This is happening, and this is happening in the very foreseen future. My understanding is that the Iranians are playing ball now. Please read my most recent tweet about that.
Okay, thank you, Mudar. Is there anything you would like to add before we end?
Enjoy the news for 2026. It's going to be so joyful to the point where you would be lucky that the news channel is not charging you a subscription. Keep those countries in mind: Jordan, the West Bank, Lebanon, Iran, and one Gulf state. A lot of things are going to change.
And Iraq?
It's going to take some time.
It's going to take some time. Okay. Thank you, Mudar. It was a pleasure as always. Thank you for this conversation. We'll talk again soon. Have a good night meanwhile.
Laila Tov.